We are already back in open session. We have no presentations tonight, but we do have Taking Positive Steps of Service Awards.
Yes, so I'd like to ask Grace Schilling, Abby Pope, Morgan Paulson, I think Tommy's not here, is he?
Morgan's not here either.
And Claire, Morgan, and Maddie. Stand up for a second. Come on. Right? So, Mr. Jelnick has nominated these students for a Taking Positive Steps for Service Award. So, for those you know, close to a decade, Lodi High School has helped produce, film, and act in the annual Lodi Pride Welcome Back video. Each video is a celebration of return of students and staff back to school, and has included both high school staff and students over the years. This year's video is unique because for the first time it features students and staff from the primary elementary school in OSC and the middle school. If you watch the video, you'll notice that their involvement brought another level of energy and enthusiasm that only some of our younger students can bring to the table. There's also another unique aspect of this year's video. For the first time, high school students not only acted in it, but produced, filmed, and helped edit the final product. All the students that are being recognized are part of the Advocate broadcasting team in class. They create bi-weekly videos that they share Lodi High School news with the student body. They invested a tremendous amount of energy and time outside the school producing a video that has again brought energy and excitement to the beginning of the 2022-23 school year. So we're recognizing these students for Taking Positive Steps of Service Award for the Lodi School District. And before I hand this out, I think we're going to watch the video. Right?
Yeah.
You guys can have a seat.
What a great start, guys. That was awesome. I'm not ready for senior. No, not at all. Well, you want us to do one last song? Of course. Turn it up.
You have to go like this. You know how radio works?
Mr. Briney doesn't, or Mr., I know Mr. Briney doesn't pay much, but I know Mr. Jellick doesn't pay much either. So come on up here for a certificate and $100,000 for all your hard work. Right?
Thank you.
That's. Thank you. And then Tommy Morgan, I said I would grab theirs.
Yeah, you can
for
take
them.
theirs, yeah?
Can I get a quick
So we
picture
should
of
take
them?
a quick
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, okay.
Girls wanna say
Wait,
anything?
before you go.
Thank you for letting us do that. Had a lot of fun. I think I watched probably like 6 hours of that one video. It was a lot, but it was fun. I had fun finding it and finding footage and piecing it together. And I think it's really cool that Lodi has a community like it does, because I'm not from here, so I've never had that sense of community, but I didn't realize that that would be as big of a deal as it is. So, thank you.
Such a big deal. You guys did amazing. That, like, oh, I get teary-eyed every time. You guys, it just was, just after the years that these kids have had, that just is, I mean, it's perfect. You guys did amazing.
It's the best one because you guys did it, not some
Yes.
outside
Yes.
group or something. It was done by you guys. That's what makes it the
You guys should be
best.
very proud.
Yeah.
Thank you.
proud of you. Yes.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I guess. I don't know. I'm like, it didn't feel like that big of a deal. Like, it was just like Mr. Jelinek came up to us and was like, hey, can you guys do this? Okay. And that was it. That was that.
We think it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we get to go home now, or do you want us to stick around? Do you want us to stick around, or? Okay. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Next, we have public input. Purpose of the public input agenda item is for citizens and staff of the School District of Lodi to provide comments on any agenda item or publicly address the Board of Education on items that pertain to school business. Portion of the meeting during which comments of the public is invited shall be limited to 10 people unless extended by a vote of the board prior to the beginning of the public input portion of the meeting. The amount of time allotted to each speaker will generally not exceed 3 minutes. If the speaker has questions for the board, they'll be duly noted, and responses will be provided in an appropriate manner, but the board cannot respond to individual questions or individual comments as part of the public input agenda item. As an additional reminder, the board cannot take action on any item that is brought forth during the public input session or on any item that was not posted on the meeting agenda. If you are providing comments, comments, we would merely ask that you please come to the microphone, state your name and your municipality of residence. And we have 2 people who are signed up, so Monica Simpson.
Sure. Can I?
Switch them.
Okay,
switch 'em up.
Heather Schilling. Come on up.
Hello, everybody. Beautiful weather we've been having, yeah.
3 minutes.
Just take a second so I can find it. All right. All right, first of all, I just wanted to thank you guys for your discussion on SEL at the last board meeting. I appreciate the thoughtful discussion that you guys had and the time that you took to talk about what SEL is specifically to Lodi. I hope that the school provides an interactive opportunity for the community to learn more about SEL, what it is, what it isn't. The only negative thing that I saw in the last meeting was the school board president making the reference to right-wing extremist groups. And I feel comments of these kinds are divisive and alienate half the people that are watching. I also wanted to bring up something on last week's finance agenda. So the agenda item that came up was for defeasance. And for those unfamiliar, I'm gonna give a definition. I hope it's right. If it's not, somebody please correct me. But it's the method of levying debt and moving it into an escrow account, thus saving on interest and shortening the term of repayment. This can be a positive for the district as it results in savings, but it also, I don't know if it's inadvertently, but it leads to an increase in the mill rate and thus increases taxes to those within the community. And again, if I'm wrong afterwards, somebody let me know. With inflation being as high as it has been, combined with many seeing as much as 60% increases in property assessments, now is not the time to even entertain such a thing. More important is the fact that several of us attended sessions of the Coffee with the Superintendent, and Vince, I believe it was Vince, told many that if the referendum passed, defeasance would no longer be used. The fact that defeasance was even placed on the agenda to begin with blows my mind, but I understand that this may be a standard protocol. What is even more concerning to me is the fact that Scott Bilsey attempted to have any further conversation about using defeasance shut down in the last meeting, which I think was amazing. Adam, who is up for re-election next year, said he wanted to wait to see what the mill rate does before deciding on how or if to proceed with defeasance. It is my understanding that he was at most, if not all, sessions with Vince. As such, I don't understand this illogical and deceitful thought process coming from the school board's own president. This is absolutely not okay, and I know for a fact that there are many that would refuse to support any future referendums if Lodi went back on its word. And then finally, I brought this up in the last meeting, but I just wanted to bring up a point that I feel like needs better communication and attention. And that is the fact that many parents are unaware that biological boys are using the girls' restroom and changing rooms in the middle and high school. While I understand that this may have something, that it may have been decided based on a precedent set on a case in a higher court, I think it's only fair to inform parents because many just don't know. I know many high school and middle school girls who are uncomfortable in this scenario but afraid to speak up for fear of teasing. There are single stall restrooms available for use, but some are told that those are only for those questioning their gender and not for all. And I just want this formally communicated, and I'm asking that this request be placed on the meeting's minutes. Thank you.
It says done. You did this, you did that. Jeez. Okay. Monica Simpson.
Thank you for joining.
So cute.
I know.
She's okay.
Ready?
I really want to thank you guys for taking up the topic of SEL and the name change, the possible name change. It really shows you're listening. It shows humility and bravery and that we're being listened to. So thank you. On that note, please continue with transparency on those lines of social emotional learning, because I'm hearing that not all components of the program are used, and what you guys have seen has seemed okay. But as a parent, I'm not sure what is there, and not everyone has time to come in for a private meeting to view materials. Not everyone is as privileged, or some people have distractions during the day. A night where we could ask questions of the head of the program and administrators, what it is, what it isn't, what's a myth, what's reality, what's out there. I asked my son about the Satchel Pulse surveys. He's like, I'm not really sure what they're for. I think they take our answers. So there's a little confusion. One board member mentioned that it's the same program used in the DPI, even if the name is changed to Nurturing the Whole Child. The DPI SEL site has a few concerning items, so most people would like to ask questions on a few items there. There's a lot out there, so researching as a parent is like kind of overwhelming. And you know, last year the board had police here because of threats at other schools across the country because there were some extreme events. To us, we're seeing other schools where there's extreme people on the other side pushing gender ideology and extreme left things. So maybe we're wrong, maybe that's a myth that we're running with, but we'd like to see what's actually out there. I think that such a night would be helpful. And the transparency could just clearly air and improve relations, so I'd like you to consider that. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we moved 809 gifts and donations up to the beginning here.
Yeah, so we have, item 809 is gifts and donations. We have 3 donations. There's a donation of $3,500 from Ken and Jackie Smith, the crew program. Donation of $3,000 from the Dan Marquardt Memorial Foundation for $3,000 donation to the Lodi Athletic Booster Club for the high school department Gator. And the Lodi Rotary who's here tonight, is donating $2,250 towards to offset some of the costs for 9 students to travel on the Thailand trip. I don't know if JP or maybe if you guys want to talk about this at all, or?
Sure.
Doug?
Do you want to? Sure, I can talk about it.
We can both talk about it.
Yeah. So my name is JP Fossbender. I'm the talent exchange coordinator. And also I joined the Lodi Rotary within the last year. And I was at a meeting this summer and the Rotarians were talking. And due to some facts of the pandemic, the budget was more flush with money than typical. And so the kind of rhetorical question was asked, what should we do with this money? And so I just kind of politely raised my hand and I said, well, I've got students going to Thailand, and and Rotary's mission is to foster exchange and foster international friendship. And so I thought it would be a great use of the money to help students that are traveling to Thailand this fall with some of the expenses, because it's cheap in the relative scheme of traveling abroad, but it still is it's a costly endeavor for some of our families. And so, to be honest, I was thinking a small amount, and the Rotarians came back with a much bigger amount than I expected. And really what they did is they decided to sponsor, when we go to Thailand, we go for a weekend to a place called Chiang Mai, which is in northern Thailand. And we do some amazing things there. We go to an elephant camp, which is an elephant preserve. We go to the King's Gardens. We go to a night safari. We go to a umbrella making factory, which is a traditional Thai cultural attribute. But that whole weekend is one of the more expensive elements of the trip. And they basically agreed to sponsor the 9 students' trips to Chiang Mai, which is pretty incredible. So, Doug, you want to come up and say some more?
Sure. First of all, I just want to take this opportunity to thank the board for allowing Lodi Rotary to bring an exchange student to Lodi High School every year since 1982, except for the last 2 years, unfortunately, because of COVID. We are back. We have a young lady here from Finland this year. And so exchange programs are very important to Rotary. I've been involved with the Rotary Youth Exchange Program for 25 years. There aren't any kids in high school today that were around when I started in youth exchange. In fact, got kids from high school that came to Lodi that I'm now a grandparent of. So they've got kids and so. But anyway, again, we just believe in the program, and I know from the long-term program that parents struggle at times and actually sacrifice themselves, make great sacrifices to allow their kids to participate in an exchange program. And Chiang Mai is on my bucket list. It has been for a number of years. And so we just thought that, this was an opportunity to hopefully, well, first of all, help some families, but also get the community to understand and realize what we as an organization are all about also. So, again, thank you for allowing us to keep bringing an exchange student here. We love the kids, and we think that hopefully the kids in the school get a lot out of it, so.
Well, thank you
Thank you
for what you do.
So anyway, and again, we had all this money sitting around, so we just thought, maybe it's a good time to, get the dust off some of it and get it out into circulation again, so, again, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Who wants the money?
Yeah, who wants,
Who wants the money? The treasurer.
Who wants it? Nobody?
Bring it up here, we'll take it.
Yeah.
You want to get a picture? Amy?
Yeah.
Somebody take some pictures.
Can we get somebody to take a picture for us?
Board president up here, not you.
Yeah.
Yeah, big check. I mean, I have a big check.
You can take from your phone too.
Vince, you get in here too.
Why would you want to ruin a good picture? Why would you want to ruin a good picture?
Well,
We'll say Thailand on 3. Ready? 1.
do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thailand.
Make it a really big.
Saying Chiang Mai this time.
Yeah, sounds good. Sorry. Okay.
Chiang Mai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants it? Vince. Oh, Vince gets it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I'm gonna lose it up here in my paper.
Sure.
Sure. I will move to accept the $3,500 donation from Ken and Jackie Smith to Crew for Programming, the Lodi Rotary for their donation of $2,250 towards the students' travel to Thailand, the $3,000 donation from the Dan Marquardt Memorial Fund, and the $3,000 donation from the Lodi Athletic Booster Club for the high school athletic department Gator with gratitude.
I'll second it.
Motion by Barb and a second by
Heather.
Heather. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda items. The items in this section will be adopted as a group unless a board member requests a specific item to be removed from consent agenda and addressed separately. Approval of the minutes from August 8th and our special meeting that we had on August 16th. Vouchers, payroll checks, direct deposits, payroll accounts payable checks, accounts payable ACH payments, and credit card payments. 3 fundraiser requests for cheerleading tailgate raffle fundraiser, cheerleading bake sale fundraiser, and a senior class powder puff fundraiser. 1 fundraising report from the baseball concession stand. We have a number of field trip requests for the National FFA Convention in October, the state wrestling tournament in February, and a bi-state wrestling tournament in lacrosse, and then the change in the date for the Washington DC trip to March 12th through the 18th. Under committee recommendation for approval, we have the snowplow contract, food service contract, and a district curriculum council stipend. And then there's nothing under resignation and retirement. We have high school Spanish teacher. Under retirement and under resignation, we have elementary school special education assistant. We have 2 middle school special education assistants. We have a primary school special education assistant, 5th grade teacher, head middle school boys basketball coach, head middle school girls basketball coach, elementary building math rep, JV girls soccer coach, a high school multicultural club advisor, and the assistant wrestling coach, and the assistant to the boys basketball coach. Under co-curricular, we have 2 assistant middle school volleyball coaches. We have a German exchange coordinator, which is going to be tabled. And then we have a head high school wrestling coach and 3 assistant high school coaches at 50% and 2 at the middle school. And then 2 more that are middle school and high school. And then under dance team, we have split between 60% on one person and 40% on another for the dance team advisor. We have high school boys basketball coach and high school girls basketball coach. And an assistant girls basketball coach and 2 assistant boys basketball coaches. Community program crew, we have 1 new member being hired. Under regular staff, we have elementary school educational assistant, there are 3 of them. We have 2 building monitors, high school special education assistant, there are 2 of them. We have 3 middle school special education assistants. We have an increase of primary school special education assistant position to full-time. We now have a new school nurse. We have a long-term 5th grade sub. We have a long-term 3rd through 5th grade reading specialist substitute. Primary school permanent long-term sub. Elementary school OSE permanent long-term sub 2 days a week. And a different person for elementary school OSE permanent long-term sub for 3 days a week. And we have a food truck driver. Under personnel other, we have administrative professional improvement approval and reimbursement requests for 2 people, and then we have 3 requests for leave without pay.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the approval of Larry Gempler as food truck driver and the tabling of the German co-coordinator.
I'll second that.
Motion by Angie, and a second by Terry. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. Regular agenda, 801, COVID mitigation.
Yeah, so our COVID medical advisory team met on September 6th to review our COVID mitigation measures. Obviously, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion since we were only in our 3rd day of school. We just, again, reviewed what we had for mitigation practices. The one question that we did have for the medical advisory team was how we should handle students who come back who tested positive at lunchtime, because typically we're asking kids either have a mask, or they have to have a negative antigen test, to return back for days 6 through 10, but obviously at lunch, they have their mask off, and we've seen, not just here, but other places, a lot more transmission during those type of periods. And so one of the things that we have in place was that kids would be sitting 6 feet apart if they came back through days 6 through 10. We had a long discussion about whether that should be required or recommended, and the committee came down on recommended, so that is a change to what our policy is. So it's recommended for kids and families to have that 6-foot social distancing during lunch, but that's the only change. So the board can either, kind of like last time, they can either approve that change, approve everything as recommended, and that'll be the only change, or they can do nothing, and then that would stay being required, students having to be 6 feet apart.
I'm going to make a motion to accept the COVID-19 mitigation recommendation by the Medical Advisory Committee as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion by Angie and a second by Heather, right? Right, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. Seclusion and restraint reports.
Yeah, it is a state requirement that the administration present the district seclusion and restraint report to the Board of Education by October 1st every year. So Ms. Schrader has provided the board a summary of our district's annual seclusion and restraint report, and we would just ask for to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve the seclusion restraint report.
I'll second that.
Motion by Heather and a second by Terry. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. Transportation amendment.
Yeah, so the district is looking to extend our contract with our current bus contract with Cobussen Buses Ltd. for an additional year through the 23-24 school year. We've been working with Cobussen, with some other districts, and also some other people inside the transportation industry. We had an in-depth discussion at the Contract Review Committee and at the Facility and Finance Committee about this extension. The Contract Review Committee unanimously voted to move it to the full board with a recommendation of approval. As I said, the Facility and Finance Committee, since it had already been moved by the Contract Review, didn't need to act on it, so they didn't, but they were fully apprised of it as well. So we would look for an approval. We're open also any questions you may have, and Brent has obviously played a role in this as well. So.
I guess I just have a question, because I know last year there was some bus issues. I know for one instance, my son went to the middle school track meet, and I think a teacher had to drive because they were out of drivers. And then I know for my son's high school golf, they had to take the van a lot. They didn't have access to a bus, and they were shoving all their equipment in there. I was just curious how that worked.
So a couple things. So Cobussen, just like everybody else, is struggling to find drivers. Right now, they're fully staffed for drivers. But they have also reached out to our coaching staff and said, coaches would be interested in becoming drivers. They can be hired, so they get paid by Cobussen to drive the bus.
Okay, so that's not going back to us.
No.
Cobussen is covering their contract.
Yep. But they have to be trained, right? We just can't throw a coach up there. The coach has to go get their CDL, they have to go get trained and do that. And then just having enough drivers at route time, like for golf and things like that. So the spring of the year is the most difficult time because, this time of year you have more games that, you're inside, you're in the lights. It's not, in the spring, it's like we have 5 o'clock game times, you have tee off times, you have to worry about light. So it's always more difficult because we struggle to have enough buses and enough people to transport them.
I just wanted to make sure if we're paying them, that they're giving us what we pay for.
And one of the reasons we are, confident moving forward, like the Forest is also with Cobussen, so we sometimes go back and forth with drivers. Or Sun Prairie right now has Cobussen too, so sometimes they will, if we're short, they will pull a driver from Sun Prairie to do a route here, or vice versa. So one of the conversations we had when we were in contract review and with Facility and Finance is that we would not want to be the only Cobussen school, not because we don't like Cobussen, but because you have some of those things. So this will also align us with DeForest, with DeForest's contract. Sun Prairie is kind of, they're looking probably to go to bid. But it aligns us with DeForest, and we can continue to work with them with another year. Because if we don't approve this, we would be looking to go to bid, and that bid would start now. because we would want another bus company. If we had another bus company, if Cobussen wanted it, that would be fine. If Cobussen didn't win it, we need 6 months to make that transition, right? So we would have to have that decision done by January. So it's a pretty in-depth process that Brent has run in our district and other districts as well. So it could be done, but we just felt at this time, the risk of going to bid in this uncertain market with cost and inflation versus the cost of extending this contract, both the committees felt, and we had felt as well, that the risk of going to bid is much higher than extending the contract for a year.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Question asked at the committee level meetings too, were overall, was the district satisfied with the service that they provided? And the answer was yes. So, as Vince just stated, our biggest concern at the committee level was if we took this to bid, what would the cost come back? We were concerned that the bid would come back much higher than what we're currently paying. And we felt that if we took it through 2024 and aligned ourselves with the forest, it would give us more influence or a better chance of getting a better bid with the forest
Okay.
aligned with Lodi for
Yep.
contract to come.
So I move to accept the 2018-2024 amendment to purchase of service agreement with Cobussen LTD for Lodi School District Transportation.
A second.
Motion by Terry and a second by Scott. Any other further discussion?
I'd just like to say that I think it'd be best if I recuse myself from voting, just because my husband works for Cobussen.
Okay.
No?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's a 6-0, one abstained. District Administrator evaluation and goal setting.
yeah, sir, per board policy 225 and board procedure 225, there are steps required in September for the evaluation process for the district administrator. The board will receive the district administrator's self-evaluation, proposed goals in closed session, and they'll also receive the evaluation tool at this meeting right now. The board can schedule a meeting to adjust the goals that were presented in closed session, or will be presented in closed session. We're going back to closed session to present them, or can approve them later. Typically what has happened is the board members have asked each other to complete the evaluation document and bring it to the next meeting, and then Adam, or the board president, whoever it is, compiles that information, and then you guys have a discussion about it, and complete the evaluation through November. So is there any questions? The documents there is a Google form for you to fill out.
We'll talk more about it in closed session. So no questions? Draft annual meeting notice.
Yeah, so our annual meeting is scheduled for October 24th, 2022. So I want to make that clear, it's October 24th. Our calendar has it in twice. In the green calendar that people get has the annual meeting on the 17th and the 24th.
Oh.
Again, one of the great things about having that paper calendar, and one of the things that's not so great, right? So it is on the 24th. Better it's on the second date, so if somebody comes early, they can always come back the following week. But it's on the 24th, and to be held in the LGI at the high school. We will reserve the PAC if we need it, if we have a big enough crowd. But we also have musical practice, and we try not to kick musical practice out. And typically, the crowd's small enough, and the LGI is a better place for that anyhow. But if we have to move it, then we will do that. But that is where it is. But for us to go to annual meeting, we need to post our annual meeting and budget hearing notice, and so they're here for you to approve.
Make a motion to approve the annual meeting notice and agenda as presented.
I second that.
Motion by Heather and a second by Terry. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 7-0. Board of Education building listening sessions.
Yeah, so last year, the Board of Education, through their 2 years ago, through their self-evaluation process, wanted to do building listening sessions. So last year, we did building listening sessions that were connected to the committee meetings. So we had a committee meeting, instead of having them here, we had them out in the buildings. And from 3:30 to 4:30 before the committee meeting, we had a listening session in each of the buildings. So I put together a tentative schedule of how that would look. Please note it would flip some of our committee meetings. So every committee has the opportunity to be a part of the listening session. Obviously, every board member is always welcome and can come to those sessions, but we kind of, last year, at least that's how we spread it out, and people seem to like that. It also got us out into the buildings a little bit more. And the other piece that we did last year was after the listening session, we actually did a building tour of the, led by the building principal. So I think that was always a good thing as well, just to see what things are going. So I guess just looking for feedback on this, or if people feel that we want to move forward, we can move forward with it. It doesn't need a motion of any sort.
Are the times flexible at all or no?
In what, like, the dates would be flexible.
The
Time,
later.
it's hard, because if yeah, well, the issue's for staff, right? So if you want to have staff there, you got to do it at the end of the school day, or staff is, to ask staff to stick around longer than that, they don't do it, right? They have other things that are going on. So I understand, right, if you can't make it, and we had that last year, right? There's some board members who just can't make those times, and that's okay, right? It's not a reflection that you don't care. It's like you have other responsibilities as well. We totally understand that, and some have more flexibility in their schedule and can make multiple ones, so.
I would say thank you for putting it together and let's
Yes.
get it done. Those were
Well, and again,
incredibly
so-
valuable last year.
We will schedule them, and again, if something comes up that it's not gonna work for people or a committee, like, we can change things, right? It's not like they're set in stone. October 5th obviously is coming up a little quicker than the other ones, but, and then we will go from there.
Well, what's great too is again, that support our pillar and our strategic plan and communication. I mean, we go sit in schools and it's a good thing.
Are the listening sessions, are they a conversation, are they back and forth, or?
It's open. It's open.
Yeah.
It's open, but
So-
we really try to listen.
It
to what
is
they
more
have to
listening.
say.
Yeah, last year we asked the staff to submit questions beforehand, like, so, because what happens is you also sometimes get in the room and people just stare at each other, right? So, like, they would submit some questions beforehand, and then when there wasn't a question, like, well, here's one that was submitted, right? And then back and forth a little bit, and then that kind of led to
Make
conversations.
it easier.
If
So,
they're
like-
submitting questions, I would imagine they want to hear back from us then, so.
Yes.
Yeah, at the
It's not
listening
just
session.
us listening.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a
We were chatting.
conversation, yep.
So if I'm not on that committee, but I go there,
You can
Yes,
come.
anyone.
but then would I
It's
be
a-
like?
It's
in-
to the board. It's not to the committee. It's to the
Okay, so
board.
it's okay.
We just
That's-
moved the committee meeting there to
Okay.
make it,
Committee meeting happens.
you're there,
after.
right?
Okay.
So
I
we
see.
try to help align your schedule as well, right? It's trying to break right after school, but it also aligns, you have a committee meeting that night, so we're gonna do it the night you already have a committee meeting.
Okay.
But if you don't have a meeting, you can sure come. It's for the entire board.
Yeah.
Is it here or is it at these schools?
It will be at those
At the
schools.
Okay,
That way we get into each school,
okay,
which was also the goal.
okay.
And who's the audience, or who's there? Is it staff, or is it
Staff.
community, or
Staff.
is it?
Yeah.
With staff, it is an open meeting. Community
Any,
can come.
we invite the staff and let them know. So some, depends on the building, right? Some buildings are, more people show up, some not, it just depends, it
So do
depends
you-
what's going on.
So can community members come if
To
they
the-
want
It's
to come?
It's an
Committee
open
meeting.
meeting, committee meeting's an open meeting.
No, I'm asking,
Oh,
not
but
the
it's
committee
this.
meeting, I'm asking about what we're
They
talking about
could
right now.
come if they wanted to, sure.
All of our
So
meetings
they
are
can
open to the public.
participate as well, so it's not just staff, it's staff and community, just to clarify that?
It's focused for staff. I mean, that's what the idea is for, is to give our staff a listening session. That's what the board had asked
So
me
the
to do.
Right,
community
that's-
can come, but
that's
they
not what I'm
aren't
asking.
gonna ask questions.
I'm asking, can community members come if they want to?
Yeah, the
Or
answer is
it
yes.
only staff that can come?
The answer is the community members can come. The focus for the meeting, though, is for staff.
But to be even more clear, all of our meetings, wherever they are always community open meetings, every one of them.
Okay.
Okay. So Mo, you can get those on our calendar then? There are no first policy readings and there are no second policy readings. We did give some donations already. Administrative reports, curriculum.
I just have a few items. I'd like to update the board on, and I'll try to do this first one annually. It's just the 22-23 draft professional development calendar. So as our community knows, we have a number of Fridays throughout the school year that students are at home, and you might be wondering, well, what are staff doing that day? And so if you click within the link that's provided within the board report, that really outlines for each of those Fridays the activities that we go through. And so there's time built in there for building principals to have just general staff meetings about things that are very pertinent to their building. There's times where we bring together what we call PLCs, or professional learning communities. So staff have conversations about curriculum and instruction and assessment within either grade level or building department level teams. And there are also times when we bring together full 4K-12 vertical curriculum teams so that we can have that conversation about what are the things we want students to know and be able to do as they go throughout that curriculum area from primary all the way through high school. So this just gives you an overview. It's kind of a template that the principals use, and they dig into it and have a little bit more detail that they send out on those Fridays to staff about what it'll look like each building, but we try to have some level of coherence across the district and what those Fridays look like. Okay, and I'll try to give this to you annually. Next one is just, it's digging a little bit deeper and just letting you know that we have 4K-12 content area teams. So every staff member in the district is part of some K-12, 4K-12 content team. Makes sense, the high school math teacher is on the math team, but for every elementary teacher, they're on some sort of team. They're either on the social studies team or the science team, the English language arts team, so that we can have those vertical discussions. And so this document, it's always posted to our website. It outlines who is on what team for our district. Each of those teams has kind of a team leader, you could call them. That's the district curriculum council. And so on these Fridays, they meet with me beforehand, and we come up with the agenda of items that they'll talk with their team about. Sometimes it's talking about things related to the budget and their needs for the upcoming school year, and other things it's talking about aligning ourselves with board adopted standards, etc. But this is something that will always be updated on our website too, so you know who those curriculum K-12 content leaders are, and so you know each member of our each educator what team they're on. And then on the back side, on my sheet, anyway, there's the educator effectiveness stipulation that we have with the state, which is our process for going through staff evaluation. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of information on that, and also share a document that my office, in conjunction with the principals, puts together every year, which is a timeline of educator effectiveness activities that staff are required to participate in, so that we can meet what is expected of the state, from the state. And so you can see all of that outlined too. We try to support our educators with all of these activities that they go through. We try to leverage a little bit of those Fridays too, some time to give them some time to do these activities. And also there's just a note in there, you may not be aware, maybe you are, but each principal and director that's responsible for evaluating educators must pass a Wisconsin evaluation certification assessment every few years, and then each year we have to participate in calibration activities per state requirements. And so on one of those Fridays, I actually pull the admin team together, and we go through those calibration exercises to ensure that we are evaluating staff all in a similar manner.
Okay, thank you. LCAT, very short.
Yes, it is. LCAT participated in the Susie the Duck Parade. 500 handheld Lodi Pride flags were handed out to the parade attendees. They were very well received. People liked them a lot. Little owl stickers were handed out on the first day of school for students to show off their Lodi Pride. LCAT is working with the Lodi Chamber of Commerce and currently one business out in the community on the Lodi Pride campaign. And the second part is that resource hubs in all of the schools have been updated with new information on LCAT, and is looking for more places to set up resource hubs in the communities involved with the Lodi School District.
Student services.
Oh, yes. First is about some transition meetings. We had a number of students and families that were feeling nervous or anxious about the start of this school year. Some were moving from one building into another. Everybody was
anxious and maybe a little bit nervous to meet their new teachers, but I want to thank the teachers, counselors, case managers, and educational assistants who took time, mostly outside of our contract days and our contracted teacher hours, to help families prepare even before the traditional open houses and sneak a peek. So some of our family needs a couple of tours within the school building, some meet and greets, even to be successful with our open house and sneak a peek. So thank you for the teachers and counselors and case managers who participated in those. The feedback that I received from families who kind of had that extra layer of support was very positive and a great way to start the school year. The second is about transportation. I've worked very closely with Pollyanna at Cobuson to plan for some of our most vulnerable students and their transportation plans. Pollyanna has been very flexible to provide a variety of transportation options for our students to be safely transported to and from school. And lastly, I want to thank our building principals. During our staff pre-service, our building principals carved out time in their buildings for our special education case managers to talk about specific students and their IEP information. This really allows our educators to hit the ground running and know what services our students are receiving on a day-to-day basis. So thank you to Amy and Eric and Derek and Jason and Joe for providing this time. They had a very busy schedule for the pre-service and carved out that time for our students. Thank you.
Primary school.
Sure, I'd just like to highlight a couple things. Last year I had a student of the day. This year we're going with shooting stars, trying to mix it up a little bit. So same idea where students will be randomly selected, and it gives me a chance for them to come down, make a phone call home. This year we're connecting it to our school motto, Caring Hearts, Curious Minds. So we talk about either something they did caring for another friend or else something that they're learning at school. And then I have a couple of principal chairs that were no longer usable, so perfect for kids. So for the day they get to sit in a principal chair. So they really, well, hopefully it'll work well and things like that. The teachers have been very flexible.
So you take it down to their room?
So we have a couple of them that they're throughout the hall, and then they take a picture in my chairs. The kids are loving it. Like I said, the teachers are being very flexible with this. So let's try this year and see. I have the new staff who we've really welcomed before, but I wanted to officially have them in here. Next year I've already marked it. I'll share that more in August. But the new staff that have just been a great addition to the primary school and just jumping in right away with everything that's going on. You know, we have this district strategic plan scorecard, we have the primary scorecard, and we really have, like at our school level, we have kind of the building blocks for that. So these were things that we as a staff did kind of a data analysis to see what we needed to work on. So we actually did this in the spring. So for example, 4K is working on uppercase letters, which will then go right towards what kindergarten is with sight words, and first and second grade is on the Fountains of Pinnell reading assessment. So all of that ties right into what we're going to be doing with our scorecard. But this is just more at a very basic level what we're working on. So these were goals, like I said, that in the spring they did. And then as far as for behaviors and kind of our PBIS, is we're looking at doing some more training with staff on EduClimber on how to put in majors or more serious situations that we address and support as a school. So that's one of our behavior goals there. And then just wanted to share with our Stride with Pride, we had our all-school play day on Friday, and that was the students had earned that with our reward. And I've already reached out to Kyla, who had done, we worked with her in the past for Heritage Park, and so we're just using the last funds to purchase. We've got a couple ideas of some things that I'm gonna have the staff vote on, but that will just go towards Heritage Park and just finalize that, so.
Thanks, thank you.
Yeah.
Elementary OSC.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. So, started the new school year, so a couple things. Obviously just getting, setting the tone for staff and for students. First of all, getting to know a new principal and kind of what my expectations are. And then also just taking the time to support them and their time together and the great work they do. There's nothing better than seeing staff getting an opportunity to do what we ask our students to do, to collaborate and to get to know each other and build connections. And so we just kind of started off the year with that. And then also we had some friends welcome us. We had from high school helpers, and then also just our focus of being able to make sure we set the tone right for students and set them up for success by taking time to build that classroom community and kind of cast a vision of what we plan on learning about this year. And so there's some examples for you that I included. And then also we have some new staff as well.
And then also, Bridging Brighter Smiles came to care for our students already this year. I took some time to try to meet with every class, and work on trying to get there to know all of our students' names. And then also we're preparing to start some of our assessment. So we can get to know our students even better and then address what they need to learn.
Okay, thank you. Middle school and high school are not here, right?
Yeah, they're excused. Derek is there is a meeting right now for the Washington DC trip at 7 o'clock tonight. So he was planning on coming over, so if you want to text him and tell him he doesn't need to come. And Joe is excused because he had a family issue that he had to work with tonight.
But we have their reports. So.
Yes.
District Administrator report.
Yeah, so if you look on our website, or if you look out across the way here, you'll see our, there is locks on our Highway 60 complex due to our light poles. As I made the board aware and the district aware as much as possible, we reached out to a company to look at if we could fix our light poles out here because some of the lights weren't working, some of the poles weren't working. And so we reached out to a company. They told us, they came out, looked at them and said, we're not going up those poles until you can tell us they're structurally safe. And we said, okay. So we reached out to an engineering firm, asked them to take a look at the poles. They came back and said they're not structurally safe and they need to come down within 5 years. Which then led us to talk to our liability insurance carrier, which said, well, if you know they need to come down, you need to close that until they come down. So our whole Highway 60 complex is closed until further notice. So we have worked really hard to reshuffle. So in knowing that, finding that out late Thursday night, early Friday morning, we were able to repaint a football practice field over here, shuffle some other things around. We shuffled our games to the stadium field. We were able to do that last weekend. And we waived the fee for youth football this week. My one question to the board is, you want me to continue to waive the fee since the Highway 60 field is done? Because per policy, they would be paying for us to be there on the field. They get one time a year to be on the field, which is that. But right now, we may need to use that field and allow them to use it. So
I think we need to allow them to use it.
That's what I assume the board would think for now. Okay. So that's what we will do looking forward. Again, and part of it's just to be rescheduling, right? We have soccer things scheduled and other things scheduled on Saturday, so it doesn't always work. We will also, the light poles will also play a role now moving forward, right? Do we look at re-adding light poles, right? Taking those down and putting light poles up? Do we change the footprint of this facility, right? The light poles set the footprint, right? And that footprint's been set for over 50 years. Well, now do we look at changing that? Or look at put lights somewhere else, right? So we're putting a new track in, and you put lights around that field and make that a field that youth can use for youth football or things of that nature. Or, it was brought up at the Facility and Finance Committee that maybe we don't add lights at all, because even though it's youth football, the school district's not responsible for youth football. I had a board member bring that up. So all those things play a role as we move forward, as we start looking at green. We've been looking at green space, so this will just add another layer of opportunity, I guess is the best way to look at it, right? It's not obviously good news for us, but it's an opportunity for us to look at our green space a little bit differently and through a different lens. But we are working right now to get 3 bids to take those light poles down. It was interesting because obviously one of the people put light poles up. We reached out to them. Yeah, we don't take them down, we put them up. But one of the parents in our district emailed me back when I sent out this email that Highway 60 closed, like, hey, we would like to bid on that project, which was awesome. I didn't know. So we sent that person to Neil, and I think he's got a second. So it's us trying to find a third person to bid on that process, and then looking at the timeliness of us being able to do that as well. So that's obviously, I'm sure, a lot of conversation that's happening around the community right now.
So before you go on to more, if you stripe that field over there on elementary and all this rain, will that field hold up with that much rain?
It'll be wet, right? So that's the part that the youth football is going to have to look at, right?
I mean, that field won't hold up when there's a lot of rain either.
Right, so that's the thing with Lodi, right? So either you're wet or you're on a hill. There's usually not much in between in Lodi. They have practiced on there before, so we'll have to look in, if they look at, and again, for practice, you can sometimes use portions.
Right.
And also we'll look at, the middle school fields up there, upstairs, yep. So some of the upper above there in middle school, So our youth football program, we will work with them to try to find a space.
Okay, thank you.
For them. And youth soccer, I mean, our soccer usually plays at the fairgrounds, but for example, I know I got an email today, my child plays youth soccer. Fairgrounds is closed. It was wet, right, for a couple days at least. So, and they were trying to find gym space, which is hard because there's volleyball starting tonight. There are volleyballs going on, and again, if we're in Lodi, we know that it's wet or it's a hill.
So Vince, what are the youth football games that I believe take place on Tuesday nights? Now that that's shut down, what was the solution?
Yeah, we're gonna have to work with you. We're gonna have to work with youth football on that, and with our.
The season has started. I mean, they've
Right.
already had
So
games.
we're gonna have to look at whether we can even host, depending on if our field is free, like the stadium field. Like if there's not a soccer game going that night, we can play it on the stadium field. Because you need to have youth football, if you're starting at 5 o'clock, you're gonna have to have lights by the end of the game, right? If you look at it right
There's
now.
typically two games.
Yep,
So
usually
that's-
7th and 8th grade
that's the
play
first
on
game that
Tuesday
starts
nights.
at that time, so
Yeah.
the second game is certainly in the dark.
So again, that's why I was asking about the stadium field, if we wanted to waive the fee. So if we can use the stadium field, we will. Youth football can do other things, right?
Because they'd have to schedule the games earlier and do the middle school game.
It'd be tough to schedule them early because you gotta get kids out of school, right?
Have to be there at 4:15.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Do you have any idea as to how many games it actually impacts for the rest of their season?
I have not had that discussion.
Usually it goes till the middle of October.
Yeah, so I would think there's probably 3 or 4 home games, probably for the 7th grade, and 3 or 4 for the 8th, because they usually play, it's about 8 games they play. And half are home and half are away.
The little kids are on weekends.
And 6 and under is, 6th grade and under are on the weekends. They play Saturdays.
They're in the week.
So is there a field for them to use, because you can't use it, regardless of the lights, you can't use the field. Is there a field for the younger kids that play on the weekend that they're going to be using?
So they use the stadium field this weekend. They use the stadium. We would look at using the stadium first. The other reason we would look at that is because of the amount of wear and tear the stadium can take compared to a grass field. Right, a grass field typically have about 70 events a year on it, and we add a little bit more to that, it really wears it down and makes it more difficult. So we would try to schedule them there, but then we will work with youth football, with our athletic director. I'm sure they do not have that all scheduled out.
Is the plan to let them use the stadium field whenever there isn't a conflict? Is that the plan currently?
That's what I said initially, like, if it's okay with the board, we let them use the stadium field and waive, if you guys want us
Just
to waive the
waiving
fee.
the fee, not about.
Yeah, but that's what we would use. We would use, the stadium field would be probably the number one, because it would bump all the other, because if we move them anywhere else, there's the dominoes that are gonna fall. If the stadium field's available, we're gonna use the stadium field. And the kids will love it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I bet you
Yes,
are.
they have no complaints about that, I'm sure.
Well, when we were at the committee level and we talked about this, and that engineering company came in and recommended they came down, that was the concern that I had. What's the liability, our insurance gonna say, now that that report was created? And I got my answer.
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, the other question we asked them was about the street. Because that was my other concern Friday morning, is like, do we need to close the street?
Oh my gosh.
At this point, they said no. Our liability insurance would cover if they would fall on the street and do something, but I was also in conversation with Chief Smith and the mayor and Groves Lloyd over the weekend to talk about that as well. Never a dull moment.
Never done.
Always something.
The other thing, a couple other things I want to talk about, the board meeting setup. Like, as you noticed, we tried to push the tables. We talked about this at board professional development meetings. Is this what you were thinking about, or is this better, or do you want to try to go farther, or?
Just this meeting tonight, I noticed it's much better, because I can see you guys, I don't have to look around anymore, I can just
Yeah.
look and I can see. So I think it's way better,
I think it's way better.
Okay.
personally, anyway.
And it works with the cameras right now, so that worked out well. So thanks Tyler and Maureen for testing that today. Secondly, we talked about the possibility of moving administrative reports to the beginning of the meeting. Is that something we want to try next meeting?
Sure.
Okay, we will move them up then. And speaking of board professional development, we are meeting on Monday, October 17th, so thank you, Heather, for adjusting your schedule, because
Oh.
everybody
I was
could
the
make it, but
problem,
Heather,
huh?
well, no, you weren't the
No, I'm
problem.
just kidding.
We're just busy, right? So
Yeah.
we appreciate you doing that, and that would allow us to do that. And as you noticed by your places today, the board has worked on collective commitments that they have put together, and now they're at their table. So that is something that they worked through during our board professional developments. And the norms of collaboration document that we talked about is also here. And if you like how these are laid out, we can get them laminated, or if you want them bigger, I guess let me know any feedback you have as well.
It's not on teal paper, as Terry requested.
No, this one,
That's not teal.
It's not teal.
oh, it's not teal?
Oh, that's right, you wanted
You're
turquoise.
insane. Oh, wait,
I
that's
didn't
not part
request
of the
teal,
norms.
so I didn't request teal. I just questioned color. We talked about putting the other one on color, but with the graphic, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the graphic of color doesn't work.
Does anybody have any issue with it?
No, I think that's great. Thank you.
Good go.
And finally, the Grow Cooperative, just so people know, we are part of the Grow Cooperative to help build educators. And so the Grow Cooperative gave out 5 $10,000 scholarships this fall. And 3 of those scholarships were given out to recipients who were graduates of Lodi High School. Again, who are student teaching this year. And they have to they'll have to pay that back unless they work for one of our 4 districts. Again, it's hopefully an opportunity to help grow our own educators and have them stay.
Yes.
Be here, so. And I am meeting tomorrow. I'm attending a roundtable discussion facilitated by Wisconsin Economic Development Council, who gave the grant at Wisconsin Heights.
Okay, thank you. Board President report. So thank you to everyone for getting the new school year up and running again. Staff and admins and parents and students and everybody working together to get everything back up and running. It's not an easy task. We understand that completely, and so thank you. And then I'd like to take a moment to thank Christy, right? For suggesting that we send thank you cards to all the staff this summer. When you first suggested that, I was like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. I don't know if I can do this. It's gonna be a lot of work. No, that is what I thought, right?
That's
But-
kind of what I felt too, but
Yeah.
once you start doing it, it was fun.
That's what I wanted to say. So then I quickly found myself wishing that there was more room on the postcards to write in even more good
Sorry if
things
you were on one of mine, I really
that
started
we,
switching
that we're
stuff.
so thankful for our staff. So it was a great idea. Thank you. And then I'd also like to thank Gene Winters, hopefully this is still going forward, for setting up the SSM pilot vaccination clinic. Right? It'll be very convenient for parents, students, and staff to get a free of charge way to get all your students up to date on all of their vaccinations. So that's great. Reports from committees. CISA 5.
I actually went to the CISA 5 building last week for I had a meeting with Jeremy, the president, for about 2.5 hours, and I got to meet everybody that works there, got more info. It's pretty overwhelming what they offer, and I'm actually really, really excited to just get more involved. And it was, when I first signed up for it, I was like, what am I doing? I don't know anything. But after that meeting, I felt a lot better, and I'm just looking forward to being included more, and then obviously, hopefully, bringing back resources for Lodi to use. So, but yeah, it was really interesting. It was great to meet with them too. And it was like all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, it's been 2.5 hours. We should probably go on. Yeah, they're really awesome. So.
There's no co-curricular report this month?
Actually, Adam, I think I have one.
Oh, what's that here that you don't?
Well, let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
Okay. Cross-country. The cross-country team has had a busy last few weeks. On Saturday, September 3rd, the cross-country team hosted the Lodi Invitational. The 9 teams in attendance waited out the rain until conditions improved, with the boys varsity team finishing 2nd and the girls varsity team finishing 4th. This past week, they attended the Pointed Invitational on Thursday and the River Valley Invitational on Saturday. On Saturday, all racers finished with their fastest times of the season. Their next race is this Friday in Rio. Tennis. Tennis has been having a strong season so far. Overall, the varsity team is 7-4, including a big 5-2 win over Sauk Prairie. The rain held off just long enough for Lodi to squeeze in a quad at home this past Saturday. This year, Lodi will host conference competition on Saturday, September 24th in Lodi. Football. Lodi football team is off to a great start, remaining undefeated after a thrilling 37-36 win over Beloit Turner this past Friday at home. The Blue Devils have also defeated Martin Luther, McFarland, and Lakeside Lutheran. This week they travel to Breeze Stevens Stadium to take on Edgewood High School. Soccer, the varsity boys soccer team has an overall record of 2-4-2 and a conference record of 0-1-1. The team's most recent win came in a close 2-1 victory over Dodgeville/Mineral Point at home. This week they travel to Lake Mills and Reedsburg before hosting a quad with Baraboo, Eagle, and Neenah on Saturday in Lodi. Volleyball. The volleyball team has an overall record of 3-12 and a conference record of 0-3. This past weekend they participated in the Sauk Prairie Tournament. This week they travel to Watertown Luther Prep and host Columbus at home on Thursday night. The volleyball team is under new leadership with Adam Buss taking over the head coach role this year. Swimming. The swim team hosted their second invitational of the year this past weekend in the Lodi High School pool. Lodi took 4th out of 5 teams. They have a small break before traveling to DeForest on September 22nd. Lodi swimmers will be back home for a duel on September 24th and 29th. That's the report.
Thank you. OSC.
There was no meeting.
Okay. And then contract review.
Direct review, well, we've covered a few things here, I'm just looking. We talked about some school calendars, but that's gonna come back to us about, there's a lot of moving parts with calendars and who to survey about the options, so that'll come back to our committee, yeah, for next year. We talked about renaming the committee, I guess, does that need to come to the full board?
It will.
It will,
It didn't come
okay.
this time. So the committee talked about changing the name from contract review to personnel. They really don't deal with contracts, but so for example, they,
2011.
yeah, so really they've dealt, like, for example, they were dealing with the busing, because it's contract review, so the busing contract and the food contract came to them, but then went to facility and finance, because it's the finance piece of it as well. So really turning that contract, it really focuses personnel, so just changing the name to personnel. So contracts are, the committees aren't doing double work.
Yeah, it used to be teacher contracts, but those are gone.
Yep.
Right, so, we also talked about, changing the handbook to whether this came out of our, professional development, which responsibilities are boards and which one are, superintendent. And one of the items was, approving leave without pay. And whether we'd have, if it's just do it alone or whether we'd still have it in our consent agenda so we could see it. And there was some discussion about that, but we did not make a motion on it to change it. I was in favor of leaving. We talked about reasons to leave it, so that the whole board, would be in the loop if there was, especially if there was questions about that. Or staff members had concerns about how that was being approved. So there was no action on that from our committee.
Okay. Curriculum.
Nick came and talked about the summer curriculum work the summer is very busy. People think teachers are off in the summer, and it's not true. They're just very, very busy working on curriculum. So we heard a lot about how things are lining up again with math and with reading, and I'm just kudos to all of you. And then we talked about the curriculum council stipend, because there are people who are, Nick is here, and then he has department chairs for each of the curriculums. We talked about that already as a board, but anyway, we went ahead, gone over that and the budget with that, and what it needed to be. And let me go back to the rest. What else did we talk about? Talked about the Lodi intern and state assessment schedule, and let me see, professional development. Did I miss anything, Nick? I don't think so. Yeah. And we don't meet again until later in September.
Facility finance.
Most of what we talked about was already discussed here tonight. Two other things we talked about, there's going to be, I can't remember the name of the group, is coming to paint a map, a United States map on the LES OSC playground. And middle school is going to have a mural painted in the wall going down the music hallway towards the gym.
Is the map on the ground?
Yeah, on the playground.
Yeah,
Like
there's
the
a
kids can
picture
play.
Yeah.
there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have that as an elementary student, that's so cool.
Yeah, there's some group that's coming to do it for free.
For $0.
So
Really?
cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is neat. That'll be fun for them.
Do you know when? Will it be this year? Or?
No, they want to, I
Yeah,
think they
they're
want to get
coming
it done,
this
yeah.
fall yet, right?
Yeah, they want
We'll have to
it
work
done.
on it. Hoping.
Hoping.
That's really cool.
And will it be over on this side? And that
On the
area, right?
on the back corner of the concrete over here, there's nothing else. Is what we were told.
It's gonna be this big.
Policy. We had the representatives from NEOLA, which is a policy service organization, come out and present to us again. It had been quite a while since they presented, and we needed the refresher, and also because we have 2 new members on the committee. And so they gave an overview of what they offer, of how it can benefit our district. Some questions arose out of that, just naturally, like how much time would it take to transfer, because it's a completely different system for our policies, like a different, I don't know, what would you call it, codification, or how you would reference that, but, Vince is gonna kind of get that information, I think, from them of how long, the timeline it would take to transfer all of our policies, and then just a couple other questions, but it was very informative, and I enjoyed the presentation for the second time. And then policy on advertising on school property came about because one of our vendors had it in the contract, and so we were looking at it, and our policy is a bit outdated. I think that this is an opportunity for our district maybe to make a little bit of money, but some questions came up because we don't want to just be a giant billboard for our school district. There's a fine line there. We talked about locations. That might change now, given the issues. The main spot was over here on Highway 60. A great point was brought up that we don't necessarily want it in the gym because that's classroom space. So I thought we had really good discussion that surrounded that, and it was just kind of left with more discussion to be had.
Yeah, we're gonna explore some things, what our other districts are doing, and try to find some language around them, and look at updating prices and.
Yeah. That's about it.
That's it, thank you. Future meetings and agendas are there, or if you want to add an agenda? And we need to go back into closed session, so.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting and go back, or that
You
we
have to
go back
read,
into.
you have to read that exact phrase. Under reconvene into closed session.
I make a motion that we reconvene into closed session.
Pursuant.
Is it not finding it all?
Right here.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn to closed session pursuant of Wisconsin statute 19.85, 1C, E, and F to consider employment and compensation and performance evaluation data, administrators, teachers, support staff, coaches, and crew to negotiate regarding specific public business contracts and agreements.
Second.
Motion by Terry, and a second by Barb. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Terry.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
7-0, we're back in closed session. Thank you, everybody.